Welcome to the deep dive. You've brought us a really fascinating stack of source material here. What looks like excerpts from an incredibly intricate story.
Hmm.
We've got official reports, personal interviews, vivid travel descriptions, and moments of pretty intense personal drama all mixed together.
It's quite a mosaic, yeah. Definitely gives us a lot to work with to, try and understand what's really going on.
Absolutely. And our mission today, yours and mine, is to go through all this material together, pull out the most important nuggets, connect the dots, and really figure out the truth behind this world where scientists seem to be, well, vanishing.
Right. And we'll sort of trace the path. Start with the initial mystery, look at how the official investigations unfold.
Okay.
Then there's some really unexpected terms, things involving mistaken identity, journeys across continents,
Wow.
and eventually, yeah, we uncover this hidden organization and its purpose, which is maybe more surprising than, just politics.
All right. Sounds like quite a journey. Let's dive in. Where do we start? What's the core problem laid out in these sources?
Okay, so right at the beginning, we get the perspective of the investigators, specifically Colonel Wharton and another guy named Jessop. And they are clearly frustrated. They're dealing with this series of disappearances, losing what Wharton actually calls their teen scientists pretty regularly.
Tame scientists. That phrase alone tells you a lot, doesn't it? Like they're prized pets or something that have gone astray.
Exactly. And their big questions are the obvious ones. How are they going missing? Why? And crucially, where are they ending up? Is it, where they suspect, or is it somewhere else entirely?
Yeah, the big unknowns.
And the material really focuses on one specific case to start, a scientist named Betterton. We learn he came from Harwell, the UK's atomic energy place, and he'd spent time in America before that.
Okay, Harwell.
His research area is described as ZEF applications.
ZEF applications. Okay, some kind of specific scientific term from this world. The sources don't really break down the tech, but it sounds sensitive.
Definitely sensitive. And his personality. He's described as pleasant, but not really outstanding, doing variations on the practical applications of ZEF. Not a top-tier genius, maybe.
More of a solid worker bee, perhaps.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And importantly, he'd been thoroughly screened, vetted, about 18 months before he vanished. Everything checked out then.
So, on the surface, totally straightforward.
Mm.
A reliable, vetted scientist. His disappearance just seems baffling at first glance.
Right. And this leads the investigators, Wharton and Jessop, to develop this theory. And it tells you maybe as much about them as the scientists.
Oh, how so?
Well, they speculate that the intense security, being constantly under the microscopes, living this cloistered life, that maybe this pressure just gets to these brilliant minds, makes them nervy, queer. That's the phrase used.
Nervy and queer.
Mm.
That's their theory. They think the stress makes the scientists susceptible. Maybe they start dreaming of some ideal world, which makes them gullible targets for anyone offering an escape or an alternative. Like they're brilliant, but naive.
Kind of. Wharton even compares it to, like, phony spiritual mediums preying on people who are grieving. It's an interesting view, maybe a bit dismissive.
Yeah, it suggests they see scientists as maybe lacking common sense, easy to fool despite their intellect. Okay, so try and understand Betterton, the man Jessop goes to his wife, right? Olive Betterton.
Exactly. Jessop interviews Mrs. Betterton, and the sources give us this really striking physical description. Tall, about 27, magnificent auburn red hair.
Okay.
But her face is called almost insignificant. Blue eyes, light eyelashes, and this is noted as significant. She's wearing no makeup at all.
No makeup. Jessop picks up on that. An investigator looking for any little detail, maybe?
Seems like it. He goes over the known facts of Betterton's disappearance with her. Left for a Paris conference, August 23rd. Attended the first 2 days, missed the third.
Right.
And he'd apparently mentioned taking a trip on a bateau mouche. One of those little seine boats on that third day.
Okay, the boat trip. How does Olive react to that?
With total disbelief, basically. She says it was unlike your husband, especially because he was so keen on the conference. She's absolutely adamant he wouldn't betray secrets, wouldn't be a communist, insists he was a scientist first and last, calls him brilliant.
So she defends him strongly. Jessop must be trying to get beyond that, right?
Yeah.
Get a sense of the actual person.
Yeah, exactly. He's trying to get a picture of the man, not just his professional qualities. Asks about personal life reading habits, biographies, crime novels, book society picks. Did he play bridge?
Trying to gauge his social life, his connections.
Right. Was he just a casual good mixer? Or did he have deeper friendships, people he really cared about? Then the conversation shifts to foreign contacts.
Ah, okay. Anyone suspicious?
Well, There's a Dr. Mark Lucas, German refugee, now an American national research chemist. Tom met him casually in London. Olive says Tom didn't much care about him.
Didn't care for him. Okay. Anyone else?
And a Mrs. Carol Speeder, American, involved with somehow. Knew Tom from the U.S., called to set up lunch in London. Seems fairly routine, maybe.
Okay. So far, nothing jumps out.
But then, Jessop brings up something new, a mysterious letter writer. He shows Olive a name. She recognizes it. Says this man wrote to her just yesterday. He just arrived in the UK.
Who is he supposed to be?
He claims, get this, to be a cousin of Tom's first wife, Elsa Mannheim, Professor Mannheim's daughter.
First wife's cousin. Okay, that's specific. Why was he writing?
Supposedly to express sympathy, ask for news. Seems polite, right? But Olive says she never heard of him. Tom had never mentioned this cousin.
Never mentioned him. Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, Jessop immediately picks up on it, asks her, mightn't he be your husband's cousin at all? She's startled, but it says the letter felt genuine, correct, and formal, and foreign. But she does wonder what the point would be if he was faking it.
Understandable question. Meanwhile, Olive herself is under a lot of strain.
Oh, definitely. The sources say she feels overwhelmed, just sitting and waiting, wants to get away. Prefers abroad for choice, just to escape the reporters, the staring. Mentions a doctor's note recommending rest and a change of scene.
Okay, sounds reasonable. How do the investigators take that?
Well, Jessop reports back to Colonel Wharton, says things are moving. Even though Jessop admits it could just be true she needs a break, they immediately suspect the worst.
What? Like she's running off to meet Betterton?
Exactly. Wharton's view is blunt. We never take that view here.
Yeah.
Their default setting is suspicion. They assume she's planning to join hubby.
Wow. Okay, so that's their mindset. Suspicion first. And this suspicion, does it lead anywhere concrete? Seems like the trail's a bit cold otherwise.
Well, it leads to a really radical shift. The story suddenly jumps continents, focuses on a completely new character, Hilary Craven, arriving in Casablanca.
Casablanca? Why is she there?
Her plane got diverted from Paris because of fog, and she's not impressed. Describes Casablanca as just a prosperous-looking French town. No mystery, no Orient, which seems to disappoint her.
So she's looking for something. Exotic, escape, maybe.
Definitely escape, but not just from the mundane. The source says she feels no escape, the same misery. Hilary Craven was Hilary Craven in Morocco. She's deeply unhappy, haunted by grief, mentions her sister Brenda's grave, her ex-husband Nigel getting married. She's in a really dark place.
Sounds like she's hit rock bottom.
Pretty much. And it's in this state that Jessop just appears in her hotel room.
Jessop? How does he find her? How does he get in?
He uses some kind of tool to turn the key from the outside. Makes a grim joke about burglars using them. He reveals he followed her, saw her buying sleeping pills at several different chemists.
Oh, no.
Yeah. He concluded she was planning suicide.
Jeez. Okay, so he confronts her about that.
He does. And then, based on this incredibly bleak assessment, he makes this utterly shocking offer. He proposes she impersonates Olive Betterton. He actually calls it the form of suicide I'm offering you.
What? He wants her to become Mrs. Betterton. How is that even possible?
It's astonishing, isn't it? His rationale is all about how the organization they're after, he calls them, operates, in these close self-contained cells. Each person only knows their little piece of the puzzle.
Compartmentalized.
Right. So if Olive Betterton was supposed to meet someone, that contact would only know what she looks like generally and where to find her. They wouldn't know her personally.
And Hilary.
And Hilary, crucially, happens to fit Olive's passport description. 5'7", red hair, blue eyes, mouth medium, no distinguishing marks. It's a match.
Wow. Pure chance.
Jessop says the substitution is a spur-of-the-moment improvisation. It was triggered by the plane crash, the one Hilary avoided because of the fog diversion, and Hilary having the right hair color. Their original plan was just to follow the real Olive. He calls Olive herself a mere pawn.
A pawn. Cold. So they just needed a red-haired woman of the right height. Shows how ruthless this organization is and how opportunistic Jessop is.
Absolutely. They pivot instantly, use the circumstances, and it really underscores how little value they place on the individual Olive.
Yeah.
She's just a placeholder.
It's incredible Hilary agrees to this, given her state. But what happened to the real Olive Betterton? Jessop mentioned a plane crash.
Yeah, the sources confirm it. The real Olive was on that flight that crashed near Casablanca, the one Hilary missed. She's in a hospital there, unconscious.
Oh, wow. So Hilary and Jessop go to the hospital.
They do. And it's a really, a poignant, difficult scene is described. Olive is heavily bandaged. She's dying. The doctor says, not very long now.
Does she? Does she wake up?
She does, briefly. Her eyes described as pale. Look at Hilary, then Jessop. She whispers, who? Hilary tries to offer help, but Olive just says, nothing unless, then stops. Nothing.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Her eyes flicker. She seems to recognize Jessop when he comes closer. He asks us about her husband, Tom. She just says, no.
Just no. What does that even mean?
It's cryptic, isn't it? Then the doctor says, c'est la fin. It's the end. Olive looks towards Hilary, makes a faint gesture. Hilary takes her hand. They're left alone for a moment. Olive tries to speak again. So, and take care. Then, she's gone.
Wow. A very quiet, tragic end. And Hilary is about to step into her life.
Exactly. And right after that, the training begins. Intense. 5 days of strenuous, mentally exhausting memorization. Like going back to school, Hilary.
What does she have to learn?
Everything. Absolutely everything about Olive's life. With the layout of her house, names of the daily women who came in, relatives, pets' names, details of her 6 months of married life, the wedding, bridesmaids, their dresses, home decor, Olive's tastes, preferences, daily routine. Hilary's amazed by the sheer volume of what feels like meaningless information.
Why so much detail? If the cells are so separate, wouldn't just the basics do?
That's what Jessop explains. They have to be ready for anything. They don't know who the contact person, the local cell, might know about Olive personally. He says these international groups have very little communication between countries. A link in England knows nothing about France or Italy. The cell waiting for Olive might only know she's arriving with instructions, but they can't be sure.
So better safe than sorry. Cover all bases.
Precisely. It highlights the organization's structure compartmentalized for security, but maybe a weakness if someone like Hilary can infiltrate one cell. The risk for her is immense. Jessop tells her she has to be on your guard for every single split second. He drills her on codes, responses, everything, and eventually seems satisfied she can pull it off.
And does Hilary remember anything else from Olive's last moments? Anything useful?
Yes. After hesitating a bit, she has scruples about sharing a dying woman's words. She tells Jessop what Olive tried to say at the very end.
The take care part.
And before that, she says Olive whispered, tell him, meaning Betterton, presumably, to be careful, Boris, danger's pack.
Boris, the mysterious cousin.
Jessop immediately connects it. Ah, our correct foreign major, Boris Glitter. He confirms, yes, that's the Polish guy from London claiming to be a cousin. But he stresses the claim is based only on Boris's own word. Hilary adds that Olive seemed genuinely frightened when she said the name.
Okay, so this Boris is definitely someone to watch out for. Do they know what he looks like?
Jessop gives a description. 6 foot, about 160 pounds, fair hair, a rather wooden face, light eyes, a foreign, sort of stilted manner, speaks correct English but with an accent, has a military bearing.
Got it. So, armed with Olive's entire life story, a warning about Boris, and presumably a new passport, Hilary steps into the role.
She does. Her task now is just to play the part, wait for contact. She checks for messages at the hotel, none yet. She starts using her new credentials. The passport photo is Hilary, but the signature on the letter of credit is Olive's name, written in Hilary's hand.
And her cover story for any mistakes.
The plane crash. She's supposed to use the idea of a concussion, memory loss, haziness to explain any inconsistencies if she slips up.
Smart. Okay, so she's in Casablanca playing Olive Betterton. Who does she meet? Does the contact show up?
Not immediately, but she encounters some other hotel guests. Classic tourist types, almost. There's a Mrs. Calvin Baker, American, plump, blued hair, very brisk and friendly, but with an inexhaustible thirst for info.
Ah, the nosy type.
Totally. And then there's Miss Hetherington. English, tall, thin, scraggy neck, badly arranged hair, radiates moral disapproval, knits shapeless garments. Very particular about who she talks to, only certain English or Americans.
Sounds like a character. Do they know who Hilary's supposed to be?
Well, they know about the plane crash, and they recognize Hilary as the survivor they read about. And then the conversation immediately turns to the other big news story.
Betterton.
Exactly. They remember the headlines about the disappearing scientist, Thomas Betterton, the Paris conference, Harwell, the atom station.
And they put two and two together?
Pretty quickly. They speculate Hilary must be his wife. Miss Hetherington gets onto the topic of atom bombs, cobalt, radioactivity, quoting her cousin's opinions. It just shows how public this whole thing is.
Yeah, she can't escape it. Does this lead anywhere? Do they offer help or...
Well, the conversation turns to travel plans. Fez, Marrakesh, and Mrs. Baker, the friendly American, suggests they travel together. offers to show Hilary around, make sure she's not imposed upon.
Hmm. Is that genuine friendliness or...
That's the question, isn't it? Hilary needs to rearrange Olive's travel plans anyway, so she cautiously mentions she's heading to Fez. And when she goes to the travel agency, something feels off. A senior clerk steps in, interrupts the junior guy helping her, seems to know something, and takes over handling her booking.
like someone's tracking her movements?
It feels like it. She ends up taking the train to Fez. On the train, she meets a friendly French salesman. Just normal travel. But she also spots someone significant from a distance. Aristides.
Aristides? Who's he?
Described as small, wrinkled face, pointed beard. He's identified as a big business magnate from Sweden. Very intelligent, alive eyes, travels with a big staff. Just an observation for now.
Okay, file that name away. What happens in Fez?
She runs straight into Mrs. Baker again, who apparently flew and is now complaining about the trains and hygiene. It really feels like Hilary's path, or rather, Olive's path, is being deliberately managed.
Yeah, these chance encounters seem less than chancy.
Right. And Hilary reflects on this. She feels like she's on her real journey now, the old life left behind. She has to keep reminding herself of Olive's persona. Moderately educated in artistic, conventional left-wing sympathies, devoted to her husband. It's a constant performance. She feels like she's in a land of mystery.
And does she meet Aristides again, the magnate?
Yes. He actually approaches her at the hotel in Fez, sits with her, has this interesting conversation comparing London's openness factories on display with Fez's hiddenness. But he claims underneath the same things go on everywhere. Cruelties, oppressions, the desire for power, bargaining. He asks her if human nature is the same everywhere. It's quite philosophical, almost probing.
Coming from a big business magnate. Maybe loaded.
You have to wonder. And these encounters, these carefully managed travels, they're all leading somewhere specific. They eventually put her on a flight from Fez.
With, let me guess, Mrs. Baker.
You got it. Mrs. Baker's there. And so is Andy Peters. Remember him? The American research chemist Jessop hinted was maybe one of your people on their side.
Right. Peters. Who else?
A young physicist, Erickson, maybe Swedish. A Dr. Barron, French bacteriologist, virus expert, and Miss Needheim, who looks like a severe nun but is actually an endocrinologist. Whole plane load of specialists.
And Mrs. Baker, is she a scientist too?
No, she clarifies she's only the liaison officer, not one of the brains.
Okay, so a curated group. Where are they going?
Not where they're supposed to. They get diverted, land at this desolate, disused army airfield out in nowhere. There's some hassle with a Berber driver, and then this large packing case gets unloaded from a station wagon. Very ominous.
A packing case. Okay, that doesn't sound good. What's going on?
Mrs. Baker lays it all out. Chillingly calm, she tells Hilary this is where one journey ends. They're going to stage another plane crash.
Another one.
Yeah. Arrange bodies, the implication is, from the packing case inside the plane, the pilot will rig it, and then boom, a fiery crash simulation.
Yeah.
Another plane that has crashed and come down in flames, and no survivors.
My God. To fake Hilary's death, or Olive's rather.
Exactly. Mrs. Baker calls it the cleverness of the plan. Make Mrs. Betterton seem to die after her narrow escape in Casablanca. Perfect cover for her disappearance into wherever they're really going.
That's incredibly elaborate. And dark. What about the others on the plane? The scientists?
They're the recruits. Barron, the bacteriologist, Erickson, the physicist, Peters, the chemist, Needheim, the endocrinologist. Mrs. Baker's just the handler. And she makes this chilling aside about Miss Hetherington, the Englishwoman from the hotel.
The one knitting and worrying about atoms?
Yeah. Mrs. Baker says she never had a chance. Suggests maybe she was marked for recruitment or elimination too, maybe asked too many questions.
Wow. Okay, so fake crash accomplished. Where do they go next?
They travel by car through the desert for days. And the conversations Hilary overhears give you a real insight into these recruits.
Like what?
Barron and Peters discuss Western versus Eastern perspectives. Someone brings up Betterton's supposed communist views. Hilary sticks to the script, denies he was political. Peters says something really disturbing about being willing to kill for scientific progress, finding the process amazingly interesting.
Yikes. What does Hilary make of them?
She sees their flaws, their dangerous edges. Needheim's arrogance, calling the local Berber women a slave race, Peters' fanaticism and hatred, Erickson's naive, impractical idealism, and Mrs. Baker's is this efficient instrument. No heart, no conscience. A mixed bag of brilliance and, well, scary traits.
A collection of potentially dangerous minds. So after days in the desert, they arrive.
Yeah, end of the third day, they stop at a native hotel, change back into European clothes, then another flight from another disused airfield. They're heading inland. Mrs. Baker notes, an iron curtain can be anywhere. This place, the unit, is self-contained.
The unit. So that's what it's called. What's the arrival like?
They're met by a man named Van Heidem. Big, handsome, speaks multiple languages, but has cold eyes. First stop, the registry.
Registry sounds official.
Very. It's compulsory processing. They record every possible detail. Health, psychology, skills, preferences. Described as very military and medical. Formidable. It's clear this isn't just a lab. It's about total control and assessment of the people they brought in, their brains pool.
Total information gathering. Who does she meet next?
The psychologist, Dr. Rubeck.
Yeah.
Tall, melancholy Swiss. He gives her a test, intelligence, personality type, word association, notes that wives are a minority there, and refreshingly free from the brainstorms of the scientists.
Brainstorms, like mental instability.
Seem to imply that. He paints this picture of an agreeable life for the wives, hobbies, recreation, classes provided, trying to make it sound pleasant.
Is any of it pleasant?
Well, there's this weird touch of artificial normalcy. A Mademoiselle Laroche, apparently a former Paris fashion teller, runs a salon. Offers Hilary clothes, underwear, dinner dress, tailoring from a huge stock. Hilary finds it bizarre, owning nothing but her toiletries. Highlights how cut off she is.
Completely stripped of her past life. Did she meet anyone higher up?
Yes, the deputy director, Dr. Nielsen. Another doctor. He's very vague when she asked about leaving, says it depends on the husband. Confirms the unit is a world in itself, nothing outside but desert. Calls her question about leaving very natural, but says the initial claustrophobia usually passes.
Claustrophobia. Acknowledges it's like a prison then.
Pretty much, while spinning it. He compares the unit to an anthill perfectly organized, unlike the chaotic outside world. Calls it an earthly paradise.
Earthly paradise. Right, I bet. Where does Hilary stay?
She gets a nice apartment, well-appointed, twin beds, wardrobe. But she thinks it feels like a school. And apparently, Betterton felt the same way when he first arrived.
So she's settled in. When does she meet Betterton? The man she's risked everything to find, supposedly.
He just walks into the apartment.
Yeah.
And his appearance? It's changed. Plastic surgery. He says he hasn't got quite the same face.
Plastic surgery? Why?
We find out later, but at first it's just a shock. But even with the changes, he immediately recognizes her, or thinks he recognizes Olive, calls out Olive, says it was an impulse he hoped she'd been sent to get him out.
He wants out. Already.
Desperately. And crucially, as he recognizes her, he gives her this warning pressure of the fingers, whispers faintly, urging her to play along with the idea that she is Olive.
So he knows they're being watched or listened to.
Must assume so. He gives the official story first. Came of his own free will, all keenly and enthusiastically, lured by the usual jargon, peace on earth, sharing scientific secrets, down with capitalists, all that. Claims he didn't know it was Africa.
The standard recruitment pitch they used?
Right. But then his real feelings spill out. It wasn't like that, he admits. It's not freedom.
And Hilary, does she tell him she's not Olive?
She has to tell him the first part. The real Olive is dead. Died in the plane crash in the hospital in Casablanca.
How does he take that?
Very stoically, almost unnervingly so. Just, so Olive's dead. I see.
Okay. Does Hilary tell him who she really is?
Not the whole truth.
Mm-hmm.
She decides it's too dangerous, thinks he's too close to breaking down, so she gives him a modified cover story.
What does she say?
That she was with Olive when she died, that she offered to take her place because she sympathized with his supposed ideals, sharing secrets, New World Order, and, well, her hair color matched. Playing into the persona she thinks he needs to hear.
Okay. Maintaining the deception even with him? Does she give him the warning about Boris?
She does. Tells him Olive's last words. Careful, Boris. Dangerous.
And does Tom know who Boris is?
He knows a Boris. Describes him as a dangerous sort of chap, one of those half-balmy idealists who would quite happily kill off half humanity. Sounds pretty extreme.
Definitely. But does he understand the warning in this context?
No, that's the thing. He can't figure out how that Boris could possibly be a danger here inside the super secure unit. It adds another layer to the Boris mystery. Who is this guy, really?
Yeah, multiple interpretations floating around. What's Tom's main state of mind, apart from wanting out?
Utter despair, really. Feels trapped in this bloody unit surrounded by a lot of inhuman robots, convinced they can't get out. Thinks Hilary's optimism, she says there's always a way. It's just naive.
But why is he so desperate? Just the confinement?
It's deeper than that. This is critical. He tells Hilary, I can't do my stuff here. He's lost the creative spark, the scientific inspiration. He can only do Good sound hack work, not the original stuff they recruited him for.
Ah, the pressure killed his creativity.
Seems like it. He's getting more nervous, less capable, and he's terrified of liquidation.
Liquidation, he means. They'll kill him.
That's what he believes.
Right.
They're not sentimentalists here, he says. If he's not producing the high-level work they want, he thinks he's disposable. The plastic surgery, he explains, was done gradually, a little at a time. And it bought him some time, gave him an excuse for not working at full capacity. But now the surgery's finished. His time is running out.
So the plastic surgery wasn't just disguise, it was a stalling tactic. Wow, this earthly paradise is sounding more like a death trap for him.
Absolutely. A gilded cage? Maybe. But the threat feels very real to him. But even in this atmosphere, some people are thinking of escape.
Besides Tom, who else?
Well, Hilary gets glimpses of daily life, meets other people. There's Simon Murchison, Tom's lab colleague, described as thin and anemic, and his wife, Bianca.
Bianca, what's her story?
She's Italian, trained in law and economics, gives lectures in the unit, but she's bored. Wants to actually study the conditions there, asks Hilary to help her gather information. And potential ally, maybe.
Interesting. Anyone else stand out?
Andy Peters jokes about feeling like a homesick little boy, but seems keen to get to work. And you see contrasts, like Erickson, the physicist, totally abstracted, thinks hobbies are unnecessary, views women coldly. Bianca strongly disagrees, thinks recreation is vital there.
Different coping mechanisms. Where do people relax? Is there anywhere?
There's the roof garden, described as this lavish, artificial oasis on top of a building. Palms, water features, real earth brought up there. A stark contrast to the functional buildings hidden by the night below. It's used for recreation, study, and maybe secret conversations.
Ah, like the one Hilary has with Peters.
Exactly. They talk privately up there. Peters admits the unit is like a cage, but he's defiant. He believes escape is possible.
How? Tom seemed convinced it was impossible.
Peters says, where there's a way in, there's a way out. He dismisses tunneling sheer rock outside, then endless desert. His ideas are more about subterfuge.
Like what?
Ingenuity, camouflage, deception, bribery, corruption. He reveals he's already started subversive activities among the lower-level staff, the humbler members.
The guards, the support staff?
Presumably. People who might be dissatisfied despite the luxury because, as he says, food and money and luxury and women aren't everything. He's determined. Tells Hilary he will get out and he'll get her out too.
Okay, so Peters is actively planning something. Meanwhile, back in the outside world, what are Jessop and his colleague doing? Leblanc, was it?
Right, Leblanc, the French investigator. Stocky, dark, intelligent. They're still working the case, trying to piece together Olive's journey after Casablanca. Leblanc is looking at that Fez Marrakesh plane crash, the second one, the faked one.
The one with the charred bodies.
Yeah. 7 charred bodies were found. Understandably, Leblanc finds it hard to swallow Jessop's theory that Olive wasn't among them, that the crash was staged. The physical evidence points to everyone dying.
But Jessop insists she survived.
He holds firm. And then they get that breakthrough. A Berber man brings them a single synthetic pearl found almost half a mile from the crash site.
A pearl? Why is that significant?
Because it proves someone walked away from that crash. It couldn't have landed that far away otherwise. It means Jessop was right. Olive, or rather Hilary playing Olive, survived, and at least one of those bodies wasn't from the official passenger list. It was planted.
Vindication for Jessop, so the pearl is the clue.
It's the first solid lead they have to follow the trail after the fake crash. They start searching for more pearls, like breadcrumbs. Find one embedded in chewing gum in a latrine somewhere.
Classy.
Hey, whatever works. Kids finding pearls helps too. They trace her out. They also use some kind of phosphorescent glove trick. Jessop devised the Hand of Fatma sign seen on a car at night. Dangerous, but effective.
Clever. Where does the trail lead?
It leads them to finding a triangle of pearls, again with chewing gum, near another one of those disused Army airfields. This tells them the next stage was definitely another flight.
Okay, so they know how they moved on, but not where to.
Exactly. The trail goes cold again. Destination unknown. They've lost them.
Until. There must be another breakthrough.
There is, and it comes from the most unlikely source. Olive Betterton's actual dying word back in the hospital.
The say-so, or take care.
No, Jessop remembers something else she mumbled. Leprosy.
Leprosy, like the disease.
Exactly. They decode it, start looking at maps of the area near the crash site, and they find it. Not some hidden desert base, but a famous, highly reputable medical research station.
A real one?
Oh yeah. top-level endorsements, presidential patronage, doing vital work on leprosy, cancer, TB, world-renowned.
Wow. Hiding in plain sight.
The perfect camouflage, Jessop realizes. An atmosphere of the highest respectability masking the whole operation. That's the unit.
Incredible. And who do they think is behind it all, running this medical front?
Jessop puts it together. M. Aristides, the big business magnate Hilary encountered.
Aristides. So he's the mastermind.
Jessop's theory is, it's not political. It's a vast commercial ramp. Aristides is collecting these brains for his own purposes, profit, power, who knows.
Makes sense. Given his background, can they prove it?
That's the problem Leblanc points out. Aristides is huge. Governments owe him favors. They're deeply indebted. They won't want to believe it, and they probably won't act, even if they do. Their hands are tied.
So the official channels are useless.
Pretty much. Jessop says he's pinning his fate elsewhere than governments and diplomats. Suggests he has another plan.
Which leads to?
The confrontation. They arrange an official inspection of the unit, the medical research station.
Chicos. Just Jessop and Leblanc?
No, it's a big deal. An impressive delegation arrives. A French minister, the American ambassador, the British consul, the chief of police, some MPs, journalists, and Jessop and Leblanc tagging along. Part of the charade involved seeing actual lepers lined up outside, playing up the legitimacy.
Setting the stage. What happens inside?
They meet Aristides himself in a modern lounge. He plays the part of the great philanthropist perfectly. This is his swan song, no expense has been spared.
Yeah.
The guests are suitably impressed by the facilities, the food, the whole setup.
Taken in by the performance.
Completely. After the tour, the minister's ready to leave, satisfied he's seen all there is to see. That's Jessop's cue.
Okay, the moment of truth.
He steps forward, politely but firmly, asks specifically to see Mrs. Betterton Olive, and her husband, Tom Betterton, reminding them of his background at Harwell and in America.
How does the unit react? Van Heidem, the administrator.
Van Heidem flatly denies they're there,
Mm-hmm.
says Jessop must be mistaken.
Okay. Does Jessop push?
He does. He then asks for Andrew Peters, the American research chemist. And importantly, the American ambassador backs him up, confirms he wants to see Peters too.
Adding official weight.
Right. Van Heidem still denies knowing Peters. Jessop keeps going, naming the others from Hilary's flight. Erickson, Dr. Barron, Mrs. Calvin Baker.
And Van Heidem's explanation.
He uses the plane crash, the fake one in Morocco. Claims they were supposed to come, but tragically died in that accident. A terrible loss. Especially Dr. Barron, he says. Insists Jessop is confused about their destination.
Trying to bluff his way out.
But Jessop hammers the we point. The bodies from that crash, he emphasizes, were too badly charred for identification. How can Van Heidem be so sure who died?
Good point. Does anyone else in the delegation react?
Yes. A Lord Elverstoke, described as precise and keen, steps in, questions the lack of positive ID, demands an inquiry into these grave allegations. Aristides, cool as ever, challenges them. Where's your proof? Provide it now.
Calling their bluff. What can they do?
This is where the plan B kicks in. Suddenly, one of the Moroccan servants, just a uniformed attendant, steps forward, speaks in French, and states clearly that people are being held there against their will.
Wow. A witness from the
And
inside.
it's immediately backed up by Andy Peters.
Peters. But wasn't he inside the unit?
Twist. Peters steps forward from the inspecting party. He wasn't just a captive. He was planted in the official delegation all along, waiting for this moment.
Ah, so that's what Jessop meant by pinning his faith elsewhere. Peters was his inside man on the outside.
Looks like it. Peters confirms it. People are being held. Some are here willingly and some are not. Game over for the secrecy.
What does Aristides do, faced with public exposure?
He cuts his losses, instantly changes tack, claims his confidence was abused. He knew nothing about illegal detentions. He only endowed the place for research. To save his reputation, his empire, he orders the detainees brought out immediately, sacrifices the Brains Pool project to protect himself.
Damage control. So the unit is exposed, the prisoners are freed. Where does the story end?
We shift to Tangier. Hilary, Tom Betterton, and Jessop are there, safe. Hilary's reeling, asks, did it all happen? Tom just feels out of it, disconnected.
Understandable. Does Jessop explain Peters' role?
Yeah, he confirms Peters was working for the Americans, represents the USA. That explains why Jessop hoped Hilary might find protection if she reached Tom. The U.S. had their own operative trying to get inside or get people out.
And Tom, what's his situation now? Is he free and clear?
Not quite. He tells Hilary he's leaving immediately, needs to avoid Gibraltar, where he could be arrested, reminds her his own problems. The ones that predate the unit aren't resolved.
Ah, right. The shadow hanging over him. Does he say what it is?
Not yet. But then Peters finds Hilary, and he drops the final, biggest bombshell.
Bigger than being a secret agent.
Much bigger
Yeah.
and much more personal. He reveals his true identity. He's not Andy Peters. He is Boris. Boris Andrei Pavlov Glider.
The Boris, the Polish cousin, the dangerous idealist.
The very same Elsa Mannheim's cousin. He explains his whole backstory, Poland, U.S. education, becoming Andrew Peters, resistance work, getting his uncle and cousin Elsa out.
Okay, wow. But why was he after Betterton? Why was he investigating? What was the real reason Tom disappeared?
It wasn't recruitment by Aristides, not initially. It was Boris, or rather the intelligence services working with him, targeting Betterton for something else entirely. Justice.
Justice for what?
For murder. Boris reveals that Elsa Mannheim, Tom's first wife, was the real genius. She discovered ZEF fission, the key science. Betterton, then a Canadian nobody, married her deliberately to get close to her work.
He married her for her research.
Yes. And as her experiments were concluding, as she was on the verge of the breakthrough, he poisoned her. Slowly, untraceably, he thought. To steal her discovery, pass it off as his own, which brought him fame and his position at Harwell.
Oh my God, he murdered her.
That's what Boris claims, and he says the evidence is strong. Elsa's dying letter to him mentioned a strange illness, made him suspicious. He wrote to Olive the letter Hilary received, laying out his suspicions under his real name, Boris Glitter. Got no reply, obviously. So he went to British intelligence, teamed up with Jessop. His pursuit of Betterton wasn't about defection. It was about murder.
So the whole vanishing stylist case for Boris Peters was a way to finally get Betterton.
Exactly. His investigation, he says, ends today. Tom Betterton won't be relaxing in Tangier for long. He'll be extradited to the U.S. to face trial for Elsa's murder. Boris is certain he'll be convicted.
Unbelievable. What a twist. And Hilary? Does she tell Peters who she is?
Yes. Right at the end, she reveals her secret too. Tells him she's not Olive Betterton, that the real Olive died in Casablanca, that Jessop recruited her, a desperate woman, to take her place. Peters is genuinely stunned to learn her real name is Hilary Craven.
So they were both playing parts, running elaborate deceptions, but for completely different reasons, and neither knew the other's true identity or motive until the very end.
Exactly. A powerful moment of mutual revelation, realizing how tangled their paths were.
Wow, okay. So let's unpack this. What does it all mean?
Well, we started thinking this was about missing scientists, maybe defecting for political reasons, right?
Yeah, the Cold War angle, maybe?
But the sources reveal something much more layered. It wasn't a government, but this incredibly wealthy, amoral businessman, Aristides, running a vast commercial ramp, collecting scientists like assets.
And hiding it all behind the facade of a legitimate, respected medical research station. That camouflage is key.
Absolutely. And deception was everywhere. Faked identities, staged plane crashes, plastic surgery, all to maintain control and secrecy.
And the core reason for Betterton's disappearance, the trigger for this whole specific story arc, wasn't even recruitment initially. It was a personal crime, murder. Betterton poisoning his first wife, Elsa, to steal her scientific breakthrough.
Right, which reveals the hidden motive driving Andy Peters, who was really Boris Glitter, seeking justice for his cousin. It adds this layer of personal revenge fueling part of the investigation.
And the motivations of the people in the unit were all over the place, weren't they?
Definitely. Some might have been lured by genuine, if misguided, ideals, others by money, or just the chance to do pure research without interference. Some, like Betterton, ended up just trapped. And even the willing ones found the earthly paradise was more like a prison where they had to perform or else.
Or face liquidation, yeah. And Hilary, what was her role in all this?
She starts off just trying to escape her own grief, her own life, through suicide. But she gets pulled into this massive geopolitical, criminal thing. Forced into this dangerous impersonation, she becomes this accidental catalyst. Her mission evolves from just surviving to navigating this web of lies, witnessing the exploitation, and ultimately playing a part in exposing the unit and bringing a murderer towards justice, even though that wasn't the original plan at all.
It's quite a story. It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it, when you have these powerful figures, these layers of deception, truth hidden behind facades of respectability like that research station. How do you tell the difference between someone pursuing a noble ideal and someone just running a vast commercial ramp for their own ends?
That's the unsettling question, isn't it? How do you pierce the veil?